Namaste, everybody. A very good morning, a very good afternoon, or a very good evening, wherever you are tuning in today to the broadcast. Hi, my name is Nishit. I'm from Hindu Academy. We meet every Saturday at 2 o'clock UK time. And if you're new to the broadcast, I'll just quickly explain how this format works. We meet for about 50 to 55 minutes every week, and we start off with a focused topic. Today, the topic is going to be on the subject of whether reincarnation is real or not. After we've seen the focus topic video, we will then have a quick discussion around it. You're welcome to join in by doing a couple of things. One, make sure you like and subscribe. Make sure that you share this broadcast so more people can join in on the conversation with us. And then lastly, do make sure that you put in your thoughts, your comments, your questions into the chat area wherever you're watching this broadcast from. So without any further ado, I will start with the focus topic video. And after the discussion is finished, we will go into a general Q&A on Hinduism topic. So hold your questions and just put it into the chat area, and we'll come around to them after this focus topic. So without any further delay, here's the video, and we'll come back shortly. Is there truly life after death in Hinduism, or is it just on blind faith?
You see, the people who want to criticize the idea of reincarnation, which is central to the four world religions, Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and Sikhism. One of the greatest criticism that the other people of other faith give is this. They say it's purely a ploy to make you feel comfortable when somebody passes away, saying, no, something will survive and carry on, so don't worry too much, don't cry about it. So it is something to console you because you think you're going to get snuffed out. So it's purely a statement to give us comfort in death or when you're progressing towards death. So this is the criticism they say. You just manufactured it so that you feel comfortable. You don't feel, oh, we're all lost, all is lost. So this is the criticism. Now you see, I'm always open to challenges and questioning. So I have been questioned repeatedly. There was a person at one of these top London companies. I was giving a talk at Ernst & Young. And one person, I was talking about reincarnation, one person stood up and challenged me. He said, Mr. Lakhani, you are a scientist. Why are you, linking up yourself with this kind of waffly idea of reincarnation? Mm-hmm. It's not scientific, he told me. Mm-hmm. But I'm equal to my task. Mm-hmm. So I said, do you know exactly what science means? And he, of course, doesn't know. He just says, it's not scientific. Everybody likes to use the word, it's not scientific. Oh, it's scientific. What the heck? I said, what is science all about? Do you know one of the interesting things that you may find me telling you today is this. Science does not prove anything. There's no scientific proof of anything. Science purely offers a hypothesis, a belief system that shows you what is the reason behind certain pattern called electromagnetism. There's a pattern, and this pattern is kind of encapsulated by saying, oh, it's called gravitation. It's a hypothesis. It is not proved. There's nothing. No, you can't prove gravitation even. No, it's science. It's not science. Science is simply jumping from one hypothesis to another hypothesis to explain the pattern we observe in nature. That's all. Hypothesis, belief system. Mm-hmm. So, for example, Newton said, the reason called gravitation is because there are two lumps of matter. They attract each other with the rule called G, M1, M2, or R squared. So, how it works so well? See, it's a hypothesis, but it's not proved. Then Einstein comes and says, no, that's nonsense. There's a space-time curvature which appears as gravitational force. And we say, wow, it's even clever. See, that hypothesis, Newton's hypothesis was flicked away in 2 seconds and a new one was adopted. But do they say we have proved anything? They say, no, this is the way we see a pattern when we try and explain it, full stop. This is the only mathematical way we can try and get a handle on the pattern we observe in nature. There is no proof in science. You say, oh, I thought science is proof. So I told this gentleman, I said, look, you don't understand what science is. Science is just offering you a hypothesis to show a pattern in nature. That's all. I said, fine. So now I tell you about reincarnation. Is it just a ploy or is this for real? And it's not me, so I'm so pleased. A professor at the University of Virginia spent about 40 years of his life researching reincarnation. Serious professor, not a Hindu. And he was amazed at his research. The research was carried out by, in a way, looking at lots of little children, well, normally 3-year-old, who suddenly, without any prompting, recall a previous life, different, completely different name, everything. So suddenly the child started talking about different life form. He said, I'm not David, I'm John, and I'm living here, and I'm married, by the way, and I've got 3 children. And he gives all this information. My house is number this, blah, blah. So Ian Stevenson, the professor who does research, would go and visit him, make notes, copious notes, huge volumes. He studied 3,000 life stories. And in many cases, the story that the child is talking about can be checked out. This is why it's a scientific theory. And when you check it, it fits. So here is a pattern between 2 lives. How are these 2 lives linked? The new life and he's talking about another life, previous life, maybe lived 50 years ago, and whatever he says here fits. What's the relationship? How is it possible that these 2 lives are linked? This is what Professor Stevenson asked. And his answer is very simple. He said, I'm not here to prove anything, because science doesn't prove anything. It simply offers a hypothesis which in a way allows us to link why these 2 lives are connected. And there is no genetic link, nothing, and yet they are connected. And this is serious science. So when somebody says, Mr. Lakhani, it is not scientific, in fact on BBC, big question, I really fired away. I said, it's as scientific as any scientific theory you could thought of. So reincarnation, not a minor issue. The reason why reincarnation is far more superior is this idea of 2 life scenario, this one and the next everlasting life, is artificial. Surely that's a ploy. That you behave goody and you end up in heaven and live forever happily with God. And if you are a little bit make mistake, we are in trouble. And Mr. Lakhani, for example, he's a Hindu and didn't embrace Islam, he's going to hell for sure. Why? What rational faculty do you have to promote stuff like that? So the 2 life scenario is a naughty one. It's a carrot and stick argument offered to the public so that they stay in line. That's all. It's a ploy. But the reincarnation is as scientific as any scientific theory you can think about. I hope I've touched on it so many times and I get tired, but when they say it's not scientific, I really roll up my sleeves.
So there we go. We have a really, really interesting and fun topic to get into. Contentious. Some people say yes, no, can you prove it, can't you prove it? There is lots of discussion to be had around this really interesting topic, which is one of the central parts of so many of the, not only Hinduism, but I would say many of the Eastern religions. To carry on with this discussion further, I have got our team here. We have Manish Bhai, Sitaben, and Vijay Bhai. Welcome to today's broadcast, everyone. So Manish Bhai, I'm going to place you in the driver's seat to carry this conversation forward.
Thank you, Nisid Bhai. Wonderful topic today, reincarnation, a very interesting topic, always raises lots of questions and lively debate. So wonderful topic. Also, it disagrees completely with Western view or the Abrahamic point of view. That is a kind of direct conflict topic there. And it's interesting. Also, it's been researched. That's the good thing. A lot of research has gone into it. Last 50 years, the research is happening. The research continued to happen. So it's an ongoing topic. And it's always the question whether it is scientific or not. Can we prove it scientifically? And that is a question. Is it real or not? So Vijay Bhai, is reincarnation scientific? Can we ever prove it?
I think it depends again, as Jay Bhai said, what do you mean by scientific? That's the first question to answer, because the thing is this, as Jay Bhai mentioned, science mainly, you'd be surprised. People think that science creates new content in that sense. It doesn't. It discusses a natural phenomena as you see it and tries to pattern and see why do they happen, like gravity. Why do atoms, work at a particular level? And they try to explain from what they see. So science is generally based on empirical kind of physical events. Even to this date, if you ask any biologist or any doctor, what is consciousness? They say, oh, don't talk about it because, there That's something we can't physically quantify. So let's not talk about it. Let's not ignore it. They'll ignore it totally. If you ask them why does it matter, because we are made of lumps of matter, right? Carbon, water and whatever. How come he can think? How come he's aware? Like, Descartes say, what do you call? I think therefore I am. They will never answer that question because they don't see it as part of the realm. So that's the science is trying to stick. They never go in the metaphysical. We just say, look, we don't know, so we will not bother. Ideally speaking, they should look at that field as now as well, but they still do not. I've read quite a few books I have, of scientists. They always stop at that level. Anything physical beyond this, oh no. But the fact still remains that there's a lot of evidence, as you mentioned by Dr. Ian Stevenson. There's a lot of stuff there. And if you're kind of aware of our consciousness, what do you make of it? Does it continue? Does it continue? These are questions we should be asking. But science goes, no, we can't ask those questions because it's not something that you can observe, in an empirical manner. Let's forget it. Don't worry about it. So they don't even want to go to that step. So in that sense, science is very limited, you see. So that's the reason why I rely on other sources like evidence that Ian Stevenson's done and all the other kind of, things we have. But by and large, just to clarify one point, Manish Bhai, is that I don't know if you know, but if you look at the Christian history, when the Bible actually finalized in the Council of Nicaea, they did a couple of sessions, right? I think it was the 5th session where actually they removed all the reference to reincarnation. And you know why? Because the emperor at that time, Emperor Constantine, he didn't like the idea because he done so many bad deeds. He said, I'm not going to be reborn again and punished for those deeds. So he actually kind of almost forced all the clergy to read our Bibles. I think all but one, there's some fuzzy saying, everything was removed out of the Bible because they couldn't take it because they've done bad things, right? So in a way, they said the 2 lakh scenario. So 2 lakh scenario is a very good, interesting point there because one, you control the people. Said if you don't do what I say, you're going to burn in hellfire, right? And if you do exactly as I say, you go, to heaven. So it's very good at controlling people. But to be frank, even they had the idea. I mean, it's from the pagan kind of, thought. It's come to Christianity. Christianity believed in the early Christianity, they actually believed in incarnation, removed purposely. So by and large, I think leaving all that aside, there's a lot of work, as you say, being done on research, which shows that there's good evidence to show it's there. I think the main thing is to bring it mainstream. That's the key issue that we have challenged with at the moment. Sita Ben?
And I think you've covered it amazingly. I mean, yes, there's evidence that a lot of the ancient Greek philosophers, they all believed in the idea of reincarnation, and it suddenly got changed in Europe to this 2 life scenario. But in terms of the question of scientific and all of that, science is, as Dad said in the video, science is only able to provide you a hypothesis, a so far so good theory, and it's always open to be challenged. It's always open to be developed and improved on. It's not one of those set in stone things. And I think that's the difficulty, is that a lot of religious sort of injunctions are considered to be set in stone, not just in Hinduism, but in a lot of other religions. This idea of religious injunctions are set in stone and you're not supposed to change them. Hinduism is quite different. It's very open to evolving and changing with the times. But the idea of reincarnation is something that has been so integral to Hindu thinking, to the Indian way of thinking, not just Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism, Sikhism. All of them believe in there is something that continues to exist beyond the body, because we recognize that a lot of things in the universe at least, follow a cyclical pattern. There's creation, preservation, destruction on so many levels, at the physical level, at all sorts of levels. And that also applies for this sort of, the cycle of life that all of us actually go through as well. And this is something that we've believed in. And actually, as Dad said in the video, this professor, Ian Stevenson, has done incredible research in a very sort of academic, scientific way to sort of see what is the possibility or the probability of this happening. And as Hindus, we have to be careful that this doesn't prove reincarnation, despite the amount of effort and work that he has done. We are not saying it proves reincarnation. We're saying this is the theory that fits the best at the moment. If in future we find that actually there's another theory that fits, then Hinduism is happy to evolve. We are not set in stone like that. So we are quite scientific in the way we think, in terms of we are prepared to evolve and change with the times.
That's wonderful answer, Sitaben. Vijay, we are getting many questions on reincarnation, so we'll dive straight into them. So first of all, question is, can I be born again as another person, and how is it determined what my next life would be? Sitaben, any ideas?
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult to know exactly what happens until we've sort of gone through the process and remember it. But I think the thinking is that depending on your temperament and the kind of life that you have led and your character, you somehow are able to choose the right sort of family you think you are able to choose the right family to be born into, which sort of fits your temperament and your background and sort of fits in with the kind of family that you're going to be born into. But having said that, we have to be very careful, because sometimes you get cases where the children just don't fit in with the parents' thinking, or maybe the parents turn out to not be such good parents at all. So it's one of those things that we can't know for sure, but that's the kind of idea, I think, which is there, is that you are able to sort of choose the kind of parents that you're going to have, really. So because it's all incredibly metaphysical, we can't provide sort of physical empirical evidence for that kind of thinking unless there is somebody in this case studies or somebody even after that who is able to recall what happened prior to their being born, which is an incredible thought. But it's happened to all of us, and it's a shame that we always tend to forget. But there is a beautiful explanation as to why we do forget what happened to us before we were born, the vast majority of us anyway, and that's because the whole process of death is incredibly traumatic, and the fact that you're having to leave behind so many near and dear ones in your previous life is so incredibly painful that if you are able to remember it in this life, it may completely tear you apart emotionally. You don't know who your real family is. Is it the people you've left behind or your current family? So this is sometimes the dilemma that people who are able to remember their past life go through, because they're like, well, that's my real parents, not these are not my real parents. And it can really sort of, be very sort of damaging in a way. So that's possibly the reason why we kind of put a curtain over what has happened to us previously. And that's why we don't remember how we got born into a particular family. But actually it's something we can relate to, because, when you go through a traumatic experience like a car crash or something very, very traumatic, it's one of those experiences that, when you're asked to recall it, sometimes you just can't remember it. Your mind just goes completely blank because you're just trying to protect yourself. It's a self-defense mechanism. So we can't really know for sure, because a lot of us don't remember what happened to us before. Vijay Bhai? Sorry, you're on mute, Vijay Bhai.
I think Sita, you covered it brilliantly. Just to add, just to keep in mind that what determines is basically your characteristics, which you have with you, as Sita mentioned. So just one interesting point to compare, because the Buddhists call it rebirth. That is kind of different from reincarnation. The reincarnation case is like a bowl carrying some water, like your characteristics. When it gets worn out, you get a new kind of body. Whereas in Buddhism, is actually they don't believe in any permanence. It's like a rebirth. So one candle, it lights. At the time it goes off, at the very end, you light a new candle. So in effect, they believe that every day you're a different person. And that continues through incarnations. Because if somebody asks you, are you the same person you are last week today? You're a different person. And even if you incarnate a different person, so for them is a continuous stream of existence. Whereas for Hindus, you have these core characters which actually you mold and you change them, you make them matter. And those you carry with you all the time. And that kind of determines, as Sita mentioned, what kind of body you will choose to incarnate. So you can have the same, continue from where you are, basically the same characteristics where possible. Unless, of course, there's some quirks, as Sita mentioned, then you might end up somewhere else. That's all I can add to that, Manish Bhai. Yeah.
Okay. We got an interesting question from a viewer saying, if people don't know the laws that determine their next life, isn't it wrong that they are affected anyway and have to reincarnate and get this new life? So yes, I mean, most of us, we don't see that link between previous life and this life, and we still get buffeted by what happened in previous life and in this life as well. Isn't that wrong, Vijay?
Very good question. But the key thing is remember one thing. vast majority don't even know why we are in this body. Forget the next incarnation. We don't even know where we are now. Because most of us we don't realize it. As you said, we brought this topic last, the veil of Maya covers us to hide our true nature. So even now we are struggling with who we really are. Forget the next life, this determining, because you are assuming by this question that actually you know where you are, you know what things are happening to you, know why you're in this state. And then you say that why should I be honest if I don't understand? All this is in the realm of material existence, not in spiritual existence. So in effect, you're still, as the Gita says, the Bhagavad Gita mentions very clearly, you are driven by this force of these three gunas. They drive you, you don't even know that. The day you find that out, then you know, okay, actually, by the way, I should transcend this. But when these gunas drive, you don't understand. If you don't understand now, why would you understand when you're reincarnated? It just goes on, right? The key thing is through many incarnations, you want to try and battle that idea and find your true nature. So it doesn't matter. So you won't know anyway because you don't even know this life. How you know the next life? What I can add to that, Sita?
Yeah, I think you've covered it amazingly. But having said that, even if you don't believe in anything, that anything exists after you die, suppose you're a complete atheist, even then, I mean, humanists and all of that, they're all inclined to think that, we have to live in the here and now. We have to be as ethical and moral as we possibly can. We need to do everything possible in our capacity to do, the next right thing. So you don't even necessarily need reference to a religion or God or spirituality to try and be ethical and moral. But having said that, having that sort of spiritual sort of foundation and background and understanding can help you get a completely different perspective on life. Because, for a materialist, crunching and munching, as Dad would say, or going out and sort of achieving lots of material goals is, the ultimate sort of goal and the ultimate happiness. But having that sort of spiritual sort of, underpinning that basis, it makes you change your perspective and say, I'm not going to get that happiness from there. And even a materialist may eventually hit the point where they just don't get that level of satisfaction that they were hoping to from the material world. And they may change their attitude as they get sort of knocked about by life, because suffering and pain and, disappointment is there for everybody. You can't escape it. You can't avoid it. The only way that you can avoid it is by sort of taking a step back from a material sort of way of living and focusing on a more spiritual outlook. So all we know is that, we are living in this current moment. We just do the best we can with what we've got, regardless of your perspective, and we take it from there, really.
Wonderful answer, Sita and Vijay Bhai. We take the next question, and the question is, how did we get into this cycle of reincarnation in the first place? And how many times do I have to reincarnate? And can you explain the end of this cycle of reincarnation in more detail? Sita?
Yeah, it's a really beautiful question. I mean, it's one of those things where, every individual's journey is different. And it reminds me of a story that Swami Vivekananda said. And once upon a time, there was a rishi who spent he spent his entire life meditating, focusing really, really hard, because he just wanted an end to the cycle of reincarnation. He didn't want to come back again. And a god sort of came to him, and the god says, oh, you still need to live about 2 or 3 more lives. And the holy man was so disappointed. He said, I still have to go through so much in order to achieve enlightenment. And then he went to, the god visited somebody else who was, happily going about his everyday life. And the god told this man that actually you've got as many as many leaves on this tree. You have to go through that many lives before you can achieve enlightenment. And that person started jumping around and dancing for joy that, even I have to live after so many lives, I'm definitely going to achieve enlightenment. That's the most amazing thing. And then the god says, you can achieve enlightenment now, because you've understood that eventually all of us are going to escape from this cycle. And there's no point becoming sort of screwed up and stressed about how many lives you have to go through. The whole point is that everyone is due to have this moment of enlightenment and not having to come back to this cycle. So we don't know why. We are very honest. We don't know why the system is set up this way, why we have to go through so many lives, why we have to go through so much suffering, Some people have to go through loads of lives. Some people don't have to go through many lives. But this is the way the cookie crumbles, and all we can do in this situation is just manage in the best possible way that we can, and not become all sort of stressed and angry if we've only got a few lives left. This is just what we have to deal with. There's no other explanation we can offer. Vijay Bhai?
It's a very powerful question, actually. Why are we here in the first place? That's the question asked. Well, actually, this is not only the question that all of us ask, but even the ancient acharyas of India, Shankara, Ramanuja, they've asked the same question. I mean, Ramanuja goes that, at every cycle, every soul, they believe in infinite souls. They don't believe in the idea of one universal like Shankara. And at the time of, annihilation of the universe, so they call it Pralay, all the souls with whatever, karmas they have or enlightenment was starting, they all kind of going in that state. When the world starts again, they start from wherever they stop and the cycle continues. The idea of Shankara is that is only one, they call it Vibhu, one pervasive, all pervasive soul. And certain parts of the souls they get stuck in Maya, which is what we are. And the day we realize for a collective, then we kind of join with the, we find enlightenment. So different examples given for that. But to be honest, I agree with Sita. The truth is we really don't know. We just try and find answers to the situation. But by and large, we don't know where we are. But we do know one thing, that there's a lot of evidence and proof from great, souls, that actually there's something more to us in the body, and we don't try and achieve that state. And when you do achieve that state, which Swami Vivekananda has done, Ramakrishna Paramahansa has done, Ramana Maharshi has done, then you realize all this doesn't matter. It's just it just disappears basically. You see true nature. So that's all I can add to this, Manish. Yeah.
Wonderful. So now there we see the reincarnation process. We don't know how it began, but we are here and we're trying to figure out how to make best use of it and get out of it if we can, but not to be too stressful, and just take it lightly and progress on to work it out for ourselves. And the real question is reincarnation real and scientific? And we've seen research happening that is showing good signs that it is very likely. So there are some other indications that shows reincarnation. One is phobias. Some people have irrational fear, which are called phobias. Could you please explore this phobias issue, Vijay Bhai?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of characteristics which a lot of children are born with, and we do not know we don't know as to why that's the case. I mean, phobia or some genius, like I know Mozart writing music at a very young age. So all these kind of quirks, and you can't just say, it's just his brain is wired that way. I mean, it's too much of a coincidence to say that. So there must be something that's been coming through. Even with phobias, I mean, I know some people have got phobias for no reason at all. You just have them and you wonder, hold on a minute, why do you have a phobia of spider, or some people phobia of dogs? And you haven't even touched it, or even young children, they haven't even experienced anything yet, and they have this phobia. So there must be something behind it. I mean, there's so many variations of this kind of, unexplained kind of aversion to certain things that people have. So reincarnation is one of those things that actually really fits very well. It's something you've been collecting all this time, and you've now come to a situation where you find it difficult to kind of relate to. And that's what I can say to that, Sita Ben.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that it's possible that the reason why you're scared of heights, or you're scared of dogs or snakes or whatever it is possibly because in a previous life you had a very negative experience to do with heights or a lion or tiger or whatever it is, and there's something in your subconscious which is sort of warning you in this life, we had a bad experience with this last time, just be careful. So I mean, I'll give you a very personal example. My dad, he was very scared of heights, and who knows where that came from, because there's nothing in this lifetime which sort of triggered that. But who knows, maybe from a previous life it was linked to a negative experience. So this is the thing, phobias, and also it reminds me very much of even physical manifestations of what has happened in a previous life, because from Professor Ian Stevenson's work, children who were able to recall their past life, some of them had birthmarks, and some of these birthmarks related or or correlated exactly with something to do with a previous life. So suppose somebody was shot in a previous life. There is cases where the child is born with a birthmark at the exact point where that gunshot wound happened. So what are the chances? How is that possible that this person is able to recall such vivid details of that previous life and also have a birthmark in the exact same position? So we are not drum beating or promoting this. This is 100% true. We're just saying, what is the link? And reincarnation, it seems to be a plausible link between these two lives. And even David Hume, who is an atheist philosopher, he said that the best sort of hypothesis that fits what is the link between this life and that life is reincarnation. So even an atheist is suggesting that possibility, not proving anything, but suggesting the possibility.
That's wonderful to hear, Sita-Ben, Vijay. We take the next question. So Oli McCartle is asking, when you transfer water from one cup to another, it is water that is transferred. What is transferred in the idea of reincarnation? What goes from one body to another, Sita-Ben?
So in Hinduism, we call it something like Jivatman, which is basically all of us are Atman, all of us are spirit. But Jivatman is like your personalized spirit, which has got your character, your emotions, your kind of personality, and that sort of comes with you from one life to another. And as you live through each of your lives, your character continues to evolve and chisel and hopefully improve to the point where you're able to become a bit closer towards enlightenment. So all of us are spirits. It's the same sort of water transferring from one cup to the other, but it's a kind of personalized Atman, and we call it Jivatman. So, confined to a personalized character and quirks and likes and dislikes. And that's what I find so incredible is, in families where you have different children who are born, because they, even, for example, if you look at identical twins, they have very similar nature because they've got very similar DNA, they've got very similar nurture, the same kind of environment that they're brought up in, but it does not necessarily guarantee that they're going to make the exact same choices when they grow up. Their personalities, their characters, their preferences from a previous life come into effect as well. So, we're not sort of pre-programmed machines. We all have a very specific identity and character, which goes beyond nature and nurture, and reincarnation can provide a wonderful explanation as to why you get such varying characters within the same family. Vijay Bhai?
No, I think there's not much to add. I think Sita, you have covered it quite beautifully. I mean, the key thing is that, as Sita mentioned, is a characteristic that actually pass across, which kind of in a way attached to the idea of Atman. Not literally, but in a figurative sense. That's all I can add to that, Manish Bhai.
Wonderful, Vijay Bhai, Sita-Ben. We got further evidence of reincarnation is, as Vijay Bhai mentioned, child prodigies, and there is case of gays as well, people, homosexuals who are attracted to same gender people. Is there any reincarnation explanation for that, Vijay Bhai?
Absolutely. I mean, as you call it, the LGBTQ plus community. It's quite interesting, the things I learned from my children these days. I learned a new word called non-binary, who don't even kind of link to any male or female. There's none of those. And I never heard that word before. That's the new word I learned here. But the point is this, that, look, again, the thing is, if, as I think Jay Bhai explained a while back, that if you're born in the same body of, say, a kind of a female body, and then suddenly jump in a male body, then you're going to have all those characteristics, right, which are passed across. And you're going to say, why am I in this male body? So in that sense, you're in a male body, but you're a male person. So all this time you're in a female body. And of course, more than that, as Sita mentioned, there's so many experience you may have in the past life, even some traumatic experience, all kind of experience in your own life, married life, whatever. And you might have the aversion. Then you say, look, this life may be asexual, not attracted to anybody. So there are a lot of things that can be explained in reincarnation. Reincarnation has got really good really good thing. You can hold your hand to explain many, many different things, which otherwise you can't explain with science. And he said one of them is, of course, your gender, right? What gender you associate with. That's again a very good thing that reincarnation can be used to explain. Yeah, Sita.
Yeah, I think it's incredible because your soul is genderless, essentially.
Yeah.
It's just your physical body which kind of takes on a male or female or whichever sort of gender you're going to be born into. And reincarnation says that suppose for many lifetimes you are born as a female, it sort of gets sort of etched into your psyche that you are attracted to the male, for example. And then suppose in your next life you are born in a male body, you are still attracted to the male because it's been etched into your psyche that you are attracted to the male. And you don't know why, you kind of feel this inclination. And the beautiful thing about reincarnation is that we don't say that because of your sort of gender orientation, it doesn't mean you're any less of a person. We offer equal dignity to everybody. So there's been so much stigma around, gay and lesbian and LGBTQ community for across the world for so many hundreds and thousands of years. But the wonderful thing about reincarnation is, look, it just means that you're possibly switching bodies between lives. And that means that maybe you're sort of feeling that you're more inclined to thinking you're a female, even though you're born in a male body. And that's why you get these sort of transgender issues. People want to cross-dress, I'm not sure which gender they're attracted to, because you're kind of maybe switching quite a lot between lifetimes. And it doesn't mean that you're a bad person at all. This is just your journey. And every journey is a beautiful journey.
Wonderful to hear, Sitaben, Vijay, very good explanation. We are in this life and we don't know what happened. Is it good idea to understand what we were and go back in previous life to understand what we are about? Should we? And we hear some hypnotists are able to take people into past life where you learn about certain things about yourself. Should we use hypnotism to go back in previous life to sort out ourselves and work out how best to progress in this life, Sitaben?
It's probably healthier to not sort of delve too much into what happened to you in your past life, because as we were saying earlier, it will draw up those very vivid memories of people that you love, that you were very close to, that you have forgotten in this life, or maybe they've passed on and you can't find them ever again and you feel completely lost. It can really tear you apart. You don't know which life you're living anymore. So all we know, probably the healthiest attitude is to say, well, I've got this phobia, I've got this issue. Well, I don't know how it came, where it came from. All I know is I need to try and resolve it in this life. I need to overcome my phobia or whatever sort of issue that you're dealing with. We don't know how we got there. And it's probably best to leave things as they are rather than sort of delve into that and risk getting very, very hurt and feeling very sort of disjointed because you don't know where you belong anymore. Vijay Pai?
I think I agree with Sita in the sense that if you look back and you find out why something is happening to, why you're in a particular situation, why you have certain phobias, whatever, it just might reinforce your own, standing, oh yeah, okay, now I know why I am and I have to live with it. And actually what you should really be saying is live in the present, here and now, in the present and in the future. So in the future, look, if I have this issue, I'm going to sort it out and fix it now and in the future. You don't want the past to reinforce those already negative, issues that you have. Just to say, okay, actually you have that because of reason. You don't want reason. You want to resolve them here and now. That's the key thing I should go for. So I would not encourage the idea of going backwards. I would say go forward and look forward.
Yeah. Thank you, Vijay Bhai, Sitaben. But would you agree that hypnotism can take people into past life and where they can find out, Vijay Bhai?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because the thing is, what hypnotism does, it really goes deep into the places of your brain which you've suppressed, which you don't want to talk about, which you don't want to listen to, yes? So in the case of hypnosis, the idea is to get to those parts of your brain to get information out. And I know they do that sometimes to help you, but in some cases it may help you. But I think by and large, I don't think it'll help you that much going so far back to find it. It'll just mess up your present understanding. So I'd rather suggest you try and sort out here and now. That's my view of that, Sita.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So I think it is possible. And the thing with sort of, being hypnotized and all of that, it's one of those things that leaves you in a very, very sort of vulnerable position because you are kind of under the control, of somebody else. So it's any sort of situation. Swami Vivekananda says, any situation which makes you feel weak, try and stay away from that. Anything which makes you feel strong, go towards that. So this idea of being hypnotized and being under the control of somebody else, even if it's in a very helpful way, maybe we shouldn't venture into that. All we know is that try and find other ways to sort of resolve your condition or whatever issues that you're going through.
Wonderful answers there. I think we've covered the reincarnation topic very beautifully, and we are 40 minutes into hours, so we'll wrap up the reincarnation topic. Just to tell viewers, the reincarnation research is ongoing. University of Virginia continue to do reincarnation research. Currently, Jim Tucker at University of Virginia is doing research as well. He's published many books as well, and these cases are actually peer-reviewed, and they are reviewed by people who are very critical about it. So they very critically review it and question everything. So they are reviewed properly. So there is some good evidence there. And if anybody is interested and intrigued by this topic, feel welcome to join this kind of research. There is a group on Facebook as well, Reincarnation Research Group. You can join that, and they can give you guidance on how to do research on this thing. So this is a very fascinating topic. There's lots of things going for it. Evidence is out there, and yes, if you want to find out, you can find out if it's real or not. But depending on your background, and you may want to believe, you may not want to believe. And we leave it with the viewers with the open mind to decide for themselves. Now we take questions from viewers. Okay. Olm Cartel has asked, negative aspects of the soul are also transferred in reincarnation. So is negative aspects also transferred in reincarnation, Sitavin?
Yes, I mean, the whole package, whatever sort of character that you've developed, it comes with you. And that's why it's so incredibly important to get our priorities right in this life, because, all this money and property that we accumulate in this life, and, even our family and friends, they're not something that are going to stay with us forever. The only thing that's going to stay with you from life to life is your character. So that's why it's very, very important to spend your life working on developing as good a character as possible, because yes, all those negative stuff will come with you. That baggage will come with you in your next life. I wish it was not the case. Wish we could only take the good things, but this is the way the cookie crumbles, and that's your character, and you have to try and rub away anything that's as negative as you can and try and make yourself as positive as possible. Vijay?
No, nothing to add. I think that's absolutely, I agree with you, Sita, on that. Yeah, the whole package gets transferred basically. Yes, Manish.
Okay.
Yeah.
We take a next question from Kepler. He's asking why Krishna stole clothes of Gopika, with all due respect.
Yeah. So, okay. So just actually, there's so many stories of Krishna. I think we have to be careful about narrative, because the idea was that I think in this, there are many explanations that people give. I've asked the same question as well when I was young. And the idea was that if Krishna is truly your husband, then, you should go in your natural state. Some people say that is the idea to show that you love God as him, regardless of, you forget yourself totally. When you love God, you forget who you are, you forget your body, and you love God for himself. I think that's the kind of explanation of these stories. But there are very many stories like that, unusual stories. But I think take them from a Buddhist, take them allegorically in the idea of, in terms of showing the bond of love between us and God, Atman and God. That's the best of this story. Otherwise, you get lost in the very physical aspects. Most of them are spiritual, like Radha Krishna are seen as spiritual bond, not a physical bond. And so I think sometimes as humans, we have to realize that these stories are designed from a spiritual angle, not from a physical angle. Keep that in mind. So that same idea goes again. When you see God, you forget yourself. That's the key idea behind this story. Asita?
Yeah, I think you've covered it amazingly. I don't have much more to say apart from Krishna is always somebody who, breaks the rules, who always doesn't follow the convention. And I think all of these stories are, just showing that, God can be sort of, he can be mischievous and play tricks, but it's done in these stories in the most innocent way, just to show that, sometimes it's not all about just being a goody two shoes like Ram was, for example. Sometimes God can have a sort of more playful side as well. So it's not all about just being serious and following the rules. Krishna is all about saying, enjoy life and have fun as well.
Wonderful answer there. It's all fun and games, and who knows why Krishna did what he did, and best to go and ask him, so find it. We take the next question. Amit Bhatia is asking, are all Abrahamic religions void once reincarnation is confirmed? Vijay?
Sorry, are they void? What do you mean? How they?
Yeah, are all Abrahamic religions doomed once reincarnation is confirmed?
Oh yeah, they'll have a very tough time, because actually, interestingly, I talked to one clergy in an interfaith dialogue, and you know what? He kind of agreed with me. Said, actually, we have reincarnation, but only one reincarnation, one more, which is either heaven. So they still believe that the body and the soul moves, but only once, not many times. Yes. So I don't think they call it reincarnation. But yes, it'd be a major problem for them. But as I mentioned, early Christians, many early Christians actually believe in reincarnation. That is a fact. It's been documented. It's not like I'm making it up. Even the Christians agree that early Christians, vast majority believe in incarnation. Yes, because of the emperor that time didn't want it was taken out. But yes, there'll be a very big shock to them, because don't forget the idea of Christianity rests on the resurrection. The resurrection of Christ is a very powerful foundation. If we can prove that it happens many times, then they're doomed. Literally, that pillar will fall. That's a very major earthquake in the Christian tradition. So yes, watch out. Yeah, Sita.
Yeah, I mean, we're not here to sort of demolish or undermine any religions whatsoever, but I mean, it's one of those things that, it's so integral to our way of thinking, and it's also proven that in the European sort of way of thinking, the idea of reincarnation was there as well. So we're just sort of presenting the facts, and we're not here to undermine anybody at all. I don't know too much about the Abrahamic traditions, but if they are happy to sort of take on the idea of reincarnation, maybe it can help them on their spiritual journey.
Nishit Bhai, your turn. You want to come on, please?
Yep, I just wanted to share, at this point of the broadcast, we've been online for almost 50 minutes now, and we've had a really thorough discussion around some of our key topics, but we also have a lot of new people who've come and visited us for the very first time. And for those people, I just wanted to share some of the resources that we have outside this broadcast. So let me just quickly share some of our resources. So folks, you may be watching us on YouTube or on Twitter or on Facebook. And if you haven't followed us on Twitter, please do so, because we are growing and building our community very well there. We have 40,000 subscribers or followers on Twitter, and we're doing very well on YouTube as well. We are at close to our target of 10 million now on the channel views, and the channel is growing nicely as well. So we're at about 108,000 subscribers, and we have over 4,000 videos. So please do go ahead and explore these videos. And if you're on Facebook, you would find us on the Hindu Academy page. And finally, we have two other resources for you. One is the main Hindu Academy website, where you would be able to enroll in our free e-learning course on Hinduism. And you can also download the e-books for Hinduism from here directly and get some other resources on this website. If you do come to the Hinduism e-course, you will find that over here we've got the basics of Hinduism, we've got an advanced Hinduism, then we've got a basics of Sanskrit course as well. And we have 8,150 students enrolled into this course. We do want to get it to 10,000 very soon. So feel free to sign up to it and take advantage of all the information, the fun course with about 100 questions at the end that will test you on your newfound knowledge on the basics of Hinduism. With that, we are coming up almost to the end of the call for today. So what I want to do is maybe just Manish, if we can just wrap up with one or two more questions, then we'll call it an end for the broadcast.
Okay, thank you, Nisit Bhai, for that information. This answers one of the questions from Shruti Tailekar. She's asked about the resources for youngsters. So we would recommend joining our online course and downloading of Hinduism for Schools book by Sitaben and Jay. Our two books and the primary Hinduism books, they should help you with children, educating children about Hinduism. Ria Sharma is asked, why do we do Abhishek on Murtis? Sitaben?
I think the whole sort of purpose of that ritual is to kind of offer the best of everything that you have to God. So that's why we kind of offer milk and honey and things that are considered valuable for so many, hundreds of years. It's things that are very valuable. We like to offer them to God. So it's been a tradition for many, many years to do things like that. But then, Hinduism continues to evolve with the times. And when you look to personalities like Swami Vivekananda, who sort of promotes a much more sort of, Advaita approach, he says rather than sort of offering this milk and honey and all these valuable things to an image of God, why not offer it to the real God who is out there on the streets, not just sort of stuck in a temple? So our sort of attitudes and, thinking continues to evolve. And I think that's a beautiful thing, because if you can offer it to somebody who is in need, then the living God, then how much more dramatic and beautiful is that? Vijay Bhai?
So I think it's mainly as Sita mentioned, it's mainly the rituals regarding building a relationship with God. Because by and large, I think all the big major temples do one annual Maha Abhishek. On a daily basis, they do a kind of just symbolic, just sprinkle water or something. But the idea of Abhishek again is to link to God, to try and build relationship with God, because it makes you focus when you do all this bathing with milk, honey. But of course, when you use too much of that, you wonder really, is it really necessary to use so much? So I have seen, personally, I've seen in some Shiva temples, literally gallons of milk going down the drain. So I think, I suppose you can do Abhishek, but make it a bit symbolic and with minimal kind of material. Then you should be in relationship with God and you don't kind of waste stuff. But yeah, the main thing is to build relationship with God. That's the main idea behind doing Abhishek.
Okay, we take one more question. Ria Sharma again. Where is Brahma Lok, Vishnu Lok? Do these Lok exist and where are they? Vijay Bhai.
Okay, so as per the many Puranic stories you have, there are very many Loks, not just one. And a lot of Swamis have asked, I believe they act in different realms, not just in this universe, different realms, different kind of levels. But by and large, what these Loks do is that if you do very many good karmas, you get a chance to spend some time in these Loks and you can enjoy the fruits of your good karma for say 1,000 years. You might even become a king. Some of these Puranic stories said that. But at some point, you still have to come to earth again and then still go through your karmic cycle until you achieve moksha. So the idea is Indralok, Devlok, they are just seen as entities. But I mean, to be honest, if you ask me, are they physically there? Or do they exist? I don't know. I don't think so. That's a personal view. But even if they do, I mean, it's just like any other kind of place like Earth. Just maybe a bit better than Earth in that sense. But as I mentioned, most of these Puranic stories, they still mention that you have to come back to Earth after you enjoy your fruits and then still go live a normal life. But again, this is on a Puranic level, yeah, Asita?
Yeah, I mean, there is this thinking that, we have this realm of existence, the material realm of existence, but there are other sort of non-material realms of existence which are out there. And, they say that when you pass away, you may go to a realm which is called Pitrulok, which is where you sort of link up again with your ancestors, or there's Devlok, where higher beings reside. So, we don't have physical evidence. How can you have physical evidence for something that's essentially beyond matter? But that's the thinking and that's the ideas that are presented. And obviously, Hinduism is incredibly rational. We're very upfront. We say, if you think this is true, then take it. But if you don't want to believe it, then don't believe it. And it doesn't make you any less of a Hindu, whichever way you think.
Wonderful. We take one more question from Rachin Kataria, asking, were the gods like Arjun, Krishna, Ghatotkacha really 12 feet tall? Were they 12 feet tall, Sitaben?
I think with these stories, you have to be very careful because they are beautiful stories and there's a lot of philosophical depth behind them. But we have to also remember that they are stories and there's a lot of mythology interwoven into these stories. And, you know, we like to exaggerate. We like to say that, you know, our personalities, the main characters of these stories are, you know, bigger than life, essentially. So we like to exaggerate. And it's one of those things, it's a bit like Chinese whispers, as the story gets passed on from generation to generation through word of mouth or whatever, bits get added, bits get taken out, and we have to sort of understand what these stories are. There is some beautiful lessons that we can learn from them, but understand that they are actually stories and there are a lot of mythology interwoven into it. So we shouldn't take everything at face value when we look at these stories. We have to have a level head, because if you go out into the world and say you have these characters that were 12 feet tall, everyone will just laugh at you and say that's just ridiculous. So we have to make sure we present Hinduism in a very rational way, saying this is a story, enjoy it for what it is. There is a lot of philosophy behind it, and we take that and we incorporate it into our lives, but we understand the story element as well. Vijay Bhai?
I think very true, Sita. I think we have to be very careful. I mean, all these stories about mythological stories literally fly in the face of evolution. And for evolution, we have a lot of evidence from the ground on how humans evolved. So when you story about Gachoka, this huge giant who can increase his form, I think take it in an allegoric manner. Just see the fight of, you know, evil versus good in that sense. I mean, to be honest, the stories are very lovely because even though I know I don't literally believe them, they're very emotional, some of the stories. Even, I mean, like story of Vidura, you know, Krishna eating at his house and not at, they're very, very emotional and they make you even feel tears come to your eyes. But the key thing is to get the message across rather than focus on the actual physical story. You have to be careful. I mean, for example, Krishna, you know, if you look at some of these series on TV, you see them wearing all these beautiful silk clothes. Now we know silk came to India just after around, I think, 1,800 years ago from China for the first time. Before they're just wearing bark clothes and you know, cotton clothes. So we have to be very careful how we read stories. But that doesn't in any way diminish the great message that these stories have. They're very, very good and very important in that sense. Regarding Krishna, did he exist? I'm pretty sure he did, because through generations, the story of the poetry of Krishna has been passed down. But Sita mentioned something added, some are removed. So be very careful. I mean, I have talked to some students who goes that India had nuclear weapons at the time of Krishna. It is Brahmastra, you know, all this, I don't know, all these weapons they had, these special arrows they had. Please don't go down that route. You don't need to. You don't have to defend any of that. There's no need to defend any of that. The key thing is the beautiful message of the Gita, which comes out of this, you know, story of Krishna. Then you're safe and you're sound. That's all I can add to this, Manishwa. Yeah.
Wonderful message there, Sitaben, Vijay Bhai, very level-headed, practical approach to spirituality. Nisit Bhai, over to you, please.
Wonderful. What a lovely session we've had today. And I'm going to have just one more question because it's just popped in my view. And this is a question from Sushma Priya. She's asking, so this question is based on the theme of the day. She's asking, what can I do to be born beautiful and have a beautiful life in the next birth?
You know, all I can add is I go with, you know, Vivekananda's message. I keep it to my mind all the time. Only those who live for others are truly alive. The rest are basically walking dead. And if you live a life which enriches life for others, and of not only of others, of the environment, enrich everything you touch, then you have a beautiful life. If you feel that you're enriching something, only enriching yourself, then you're in the wrong path. That's what I can add to that. Asita.
Yeah, I mean, I think the important thing to remember is it's not about physical beauty, it's about the inner beauty. And if you have that inner beauty, it will shine through. So it's so important, as we've been saying, to develop a good character, because that will shine through and make you beautiful, essentially.
Absolutely. I think beauty is a very subjective thing, and it does lie in the eye of the beholder and changes from person to person. But yeah, so there we go. We had a really interesting topic. I'm afraid so many of the questions we've not been able to answer today because we've had over 120 chats or 130, 40 chats so far. And we can't keep up within the time span we've got. So thank you everybody for wonderfully contributing towards the session. It does make it very nice for us to host as well. And so for that, thank you very much. The last thing before we leave, I'd like to close with a quote from Swami Vivekananda. This quote is one of my favorites as well. Nothing to do with reincarnation. I just think we need a little bit of positivity. So my positive message is, arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached. That's a really wonderful message for us to take charge of the direction of our lives. And with that, I'd like to wish you all a great week ahead. Bring my team back on. This is a wonderful team that has done a great job over the past 1 hour. Thank you, Manish Bhai, for steering the ship. Sita Ben and Vijay Bhai for answering some of the tricky questions around this topic. It's not easy talking about something that is very subjective, not proven, cannot see it, cannot feel it, and no one's able to say that definitively it exists or not. So for handling all those questions, thank you very much. And folks, we'll see you next week on Saturday, 2 o'clock as always. Bye-bye for now.